When my Nikon D7200 arrived, I couldn't wait to put it through its tests, and when I used it on several projects, I was just so impressed with not only the sharpness of the images I was getting, but the super fantastic quality that I was getting at extremely low light and high ISO settings. So I figured this would be a good camera to test against Nikon's FX or full frame sensor camera. So I chose the Nikon D750 because it was about in the same class as the D7200. They both have about 24 megapixels, weigh about the same, we're about the same size. And if you look at the controls of these two cameras, they were very similar also. So I wanted to test both of these cameras out in not only normal light situations, but extremely high ISO settings, so I could see the difference in the final image quality. So let's take a look at some images. One day as I was enjoying a good cigar with one of my friends, I had my equipment with me and I asked him if he wouldn't mind if I just take a few photographs of him as we're enjoying our cigars. And he said, "Oh man, I didn't shave, I didn't dress the part." So I said, "Oh no, that's fine, because actually someone with a beard or a stubble is actually a great candidate for testing, because you can really focus in on those stubbles and see how sharp they are." So, well, here we're looking at two images. On this photo session here, I was using my Nikon 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 lens, and I opened it up all the way, so the setting was at f2.8. So here we're getting very, very narrow depth of field, and the focus was on the eyes. And I started off using an ISO setting of 400. The lighting here was natural daylight, and I had a silver reflector underneath, which just brightens up the eyes just a little bit, because you can see the little bit of a catch light on the side. And we have two different images here, one taken with the 750, one with the 7200. I was shooting at auto white balance, so there may be a little bit of a slight color difference on these. But if we look at these images here, you really can't tell any difference as far as sharpness goes. And the depth of field, if you look, the background blur is a little bit more noticeable on the one on the left, and that's the one that was taken with the 750. So the 750, now your full frame sensor camera is going to give you more background blur because they have the larger sensor. And the one on the right was taken with the D7200. Also has really nice background blur, just not quite as much as the 750 does. So that's one thing that's noticeable. Now, what about the sharpness, you say? Well, if I take the image on the left, so here we're looking at the D750, and I come in very, very close, you can see it's extremely sharp. You could see all the pores and the stubbles are very, very sharp. In fact, if you look at this image in full resolution on my monitor, magnified many, many times, you can really appreciate it probably more than you're doing on YouTube here, but it is very, very sharp, still has nice color. And then if we look at the one taken with the 7200, guess what? Also very, very sharp. And if you look at these two images and not know, you would have a hard time as to deciding which came from which camera. So at a relatively low ISO setting of 400, the image quality is just about the same. The only noticeable difference on here is just a really, really slight background blur more with the 750. And I also wanted to do some testing on some landscape photography. So I went out and I found a nice set.